Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. We have made it through two of the biggest anticlimaxes of the year, the preliminary finals and the Brownlow Medal, and we knocked those over in almost consecutive days. What a fun, long weekend for us Western Australians, Liam. How are you? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, my friend. Spring is in full bloom. I've been sneezing and snotting all day. My face is ablaze with itchiness thanks to the hay fever and all the pollen in the air. Oh, that's how you know it's grand final time. What else signals grand final time more than your allergies kicking in? That's what I've got to say. And you know what? I didn't think the finals were that bad, Jesse. I thought they were okay. I thought they were fine.
One of the finals was good. The other one was really boring.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll get to that later on in our recap. We're also going to go over the Brownlow Medal as well, go through the count and some of our thoughts on that. I have plenty, and I'm sure you do as well, Jesse. But before we get to all the fun stuff, please tell the lovely people where they can find us.
Well, they can find us at cmperfect_AFL on YouTube and on Instagram, as well as Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast on your preferred podcasting platforms. If you are watching on YouTube, hello, you can see us. That's so good for you. Congratulations. If you're not watching, that's okay. You can hear us. I'm not sure what's worse. Probably the YouTube version because you have two sensory overloads instead of one.
That's true.
But YouTube, obviously, with cmperfect_AFL, Instagram too, where a lot of our kind of best of content gets posted, Liam. So make sure you are following us on Instagram for some little outtakes and best of clips from our main show. Bit of a shorter show today, Liam, with less to talk about in terms of volume of games, but a lot to talk about as well. I think we've had the carnival of craziness continue in terms of wild contract speculation. Jack Lukosius is now going to Port Adelaide. Nathan O'Driscoll re-signed at Fremantle. That's quite exciting.
Hooray.
About that.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those ones that you were like, if they don't re-sign Drizzy, I am going to tear up my membership. You got very heated about it, but we don't have to worry about that anymore.
I would have attended the AGM, put it that way.
But no need. He's re-signed. Obviously, Charlie Dixon announcing his retirement today as well. It's all been happening today in the news. But that said, I mean, geez, bloody Geelong's Wacky Wednesday. Forget Mad Monday. They do Wacky Wednesdays now. ABC had to post something today. So I guess Blitzarves did go as Harley Reid. So it was good news fodder for them. But, you know, that's what's in the news today. But on the weekend, no, not even that, last night, Monday, as the time of recording, the Brownlow Medal happened. And we saw records falling left, right, and centre, Jesse. Not only did Patrick Cripps win with a record 45 votes, but Nick Dacos in second place also broke the previous record set by Ollie Wines and Dustin Martin in their years when they won. When did they win, Jesse? It was a few years ago now.
Wines 21, Martin 17.
There we go. That's why I've got you here. My live fact checker. Not even a fact checker. My live fact giver. You're the giver of facts, Jesse. You're the giver of the facts. But, you know, congrats to Cripps, obviously, because obviously it's a big accolade to get against your name. I believe that's his second one. Joins an elite group in that regard as well. However, there's a lot of stuff to talk about coming out of the Brownlow and around the award itself. Now, I've never been overly fond, especially in recent times, of how the Brownlow kind of gets awarded and how the points get awarded. I think there's a little bit of a cause for concern. Not concern. I mean, who cares really? But you know what I mean in relation to how everything is awarded and adjudicated. Now, 45 points is a lot, considering Ben Cousins won his with 20.
Which, to be clear, still would have beaten Marcus Bontempelli on Monday night. However, it would have been good enough for, and sorry, there's absolutely awful writing on the AFL website, so we're going to have to count manually. 4th, 8th, I think it's about 13th if he was polling in season 2024, which I don't think is a very fair reflection on how good Ben Cousins in 2005 was.
Yeah.
When you consider that Patrick Cripps has gotten double and an extra 25% on top of Cousins' votes in a career-defining, almost premiership year, whereas Cripps admittedly carried a pretty dreadful Carlton midfield to a final. Yay. And then barely scored in the first half. Oh.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing that I get a bit worried about, because it's kind of like 45 votes is a lot. And like you said, Cripps was on a team that finished just in the 8, so a lot of losses in there. Did he carry the team across the line a lot of those games? Yes. Did he strap them to their back a lot of the time? Yes. Is he a deserving winner? Probably also yes. But 45 votes it kind of waters down the importance of votes, or kind of steers us to think that potentially this award is no longer one for anybody playing this game. And this is one of the criticisms I had earlier in the year. It feels like now it's just who's got the best name as a midfielder award. Because realistically speaking, that's kind of where it's gone the last few years. I mean, if you look at the top 5, Cripps, Dacos, Butters, Sarong, and Heaney were the top 5. Nice showing from Caleb Sarong. We like to see that. That's good. But you look at that, that's five mids. 5 very good mids, but 5 mids. There are a lot of games where Cripps and Dacos both polled votes where realistically they probably had no right to. And even a lot of the pundits were only predicting that Cripps and Dacos would get 33 votes apiece. That was kind of like the AFL's prediction before the event actually took place. 33 each, which is, around about where a Brownlow winner usually gets polls. That's where they usually get their votes, around about 33, 35-ish. Now, a couple of games I want to bring up, Jesse. I want to get your thoughts on them. And also I want to know if the umpires actually don't know the difference between Nick and Josh Dacos, because I think there's a few in here that are pretty egregious. And I'll start with Dacos, because round 13 against Melbourne, Nick, he got subbed off, 15 touches, not a very quiet guy, subbed off injured. His brother, 36 touches, probably best on ground. Nick gets 1 vote. Josh doesn't even get a look in. What's going on there? And that wasn't the only example where Josh was better than Nick on the day and didn't get any votes at all. What are your thoughts on that?
Dreadful. And this is going to be a really fun discussion point, Liam, because this is going to be how many times can I contradict myself in the same segment? Because on one hand, that's really stupid. But on the other hand, I actually am a staunch advocate to not give the umpires statistics, because you think it's bad now with some of these players polling votes. Just wait until you get the most undeserved 30th. I mean, Darcy Parish may never lose a Brownlow medal again. Yeah. Put it this way, he may retire with 7 Brownlow medals if we give the umpires access to stats, because he got 30 touches, therefore 3 votes. That's what will happen. But it just is. It just is. Now, in terms of Nick and Josh Dacos being confused as the same person, that's really funny, because although they're brothers, they actually don't look that similar. It's not like Severio and Anthony Rocca, where they're basically the same human being, or Ben and Harry Mackay. Like, these are different people, guys. Like, one has very curly hair. The other one does not. The other one likes wearing really nice orange boots. The other one's just got engaged in Europe. So congratulations, Josh. Good for you. But that's the problem. Like, I don't know. And I adore the Brownlow medal in principle. But I think it's time for change. And I said this to you, I think, loosely on Monday. And did you have another game you wanted to bring up before I launch into my
your little thing? Yeah, I'll bring up the Cripps one as well. I'll get you to bring that microphone just a smidge close to your mouth as well, please, Jesse. Good boy. Now, Cripps had a couple as well. I'm going to read my little notes here. Around 24, he polled 3 votes, 30 touches. Fair enough. But when you see other players in that game, Newman, 35 touches, 6 marks, Hewitt, 32 and a goal, Sinclair, 28 and 8 tackles. Neither of them got even a look in. He got 3 votes there in a losing effort, by the way. You had a match where he polled 2 votes in round 13 with 19 touches, nowhere near best on ground, 14% efficiency. Like, look, I get it's Patrick Cripps, right? But it feels as if this year, like when you look at that, and he's getting, there was another game where he got a vote as well, where he really shouldn't have. He was nowhere near best on ground. It kind of feels like it's just geared towards a certain player, the player of the year, the player who's like been talked about the most. And it seems to have lost a lot of like you said, I think you raised it with me as well, like how Cripps polled more than twice as many as the common medal winner in Jesse Hogan. Now, thereabouts. I think
Basically 3 times. We're
basically
splitting
3 times.
hairs. We're splitting hairs getting to that point, but basically 3 times.
You know, you've got our
In fact,
defenders.
exactly 3 times. Sorry.
Exactly 3 times. There we go. That's okay. Our defenders, obviously, it was good to see Drapes get a point for his game against Sydney. It was a cracker. Luke Ryan got a few in there as well. But usually, I think someone put together online a all Australian quote unquote team made of Brownlow Medal winners. Midfield is all like 25, 30, 35, obviously 45 up to Cripps. Defenders 6, forwards 4. You know, that's where the votes kind of lie. But that was the other game I wanted to bring up. So obviously the umpires aren't getting it right. I raised to you, I said to you, should the umpires, well, I said, should they have to go and watch the game again after the game is finished? Not so much stats. Watch the whole thing again, guys. Two things you can do there. One, get a bit of immediate feedback on how you performed. You know, you can look back at the vision and make sure it's all okay. And two, get maybe a more clear indication of who the best on ground was. Jesse, floor is yours.
I'm not immediately against that idea. I just want to talk about your idea before I talk about some of mine. I'm not against the idea of the umpires going back and watching the games to give them the votes. However, I wouldn't do it day of because there is no way they're going to want to sit through that. Like, and whether they've had a phenomenal game or a crap game, that's irrelevant. Imagine being forced to watch your entire work day immediately afterwards. Like, that would be awful. Like, we forget these people are employees and not victims and heretics of my abuse to be bestowed as morons or fools or anything else you want to yell at any given time. These are people who have jobs and their job is to officiate the game. Now, I'm saying that if you want to do Wednesday review day with all the umpires, yeah, do it. That's fine. Not against that. Still, it's a bit hard then because he's talking about stats at that point. So you probably would have to give them stats to make that work, unless you're going to like do jury duty and lock them in like the double tree for 4 days. Oh, if it's a Thursday night game, they're going to be in there for almost a week. Hope they got good buffet service. So I don't think that idea is going to quite work out the way I would have hoped. Let's talk about some of my ideas, though.
Okay.
My first idea is going to be really confusing, and it's going to be a long way. It's going to be a long way to get to this. We're going to leave the Brownlow exactly as it is. I'm not going to change a thing with the Brownlow Medal. I'm leaving it exactly as it is. Because the Brownlow Medal has 100 years of history. Happy 100th Brownlow. But in saying that, we need to be able to commemorate the best and fairest player in the AFL. Now, we have a couple of other awards that float around, like the coach's MVP and the player's MVP. To me, I would amalgamate some kind of most valuable player award, potentially with a similar vote system for what they do for like the Glendenning Allen Medal and the Anzac Medal and the Norm Smith Medal, where you have a panel. I don't see why, if we're going to be willing to fork out $250,000 for this panel for 5 people, that they can't just sit there and assign the votes to every game all season. Are you joking? $250,000 to watch football all year. Like, most ex-players will take that. They don't have to even be good ones.
Yeah.
Like Charlie's free. Give him a call, Andrew. He's got nothing better to do as of today. Matt Taberner, he's free. Let's get the key forwards doing all the voting.
I think so.
But I just think that's a better way to approach it. So what you can then have is you can still have the Brownlow Medal. You even still do it on the Monday night. You do make it a bit of a thing if you want to, but I think you do start to tone it down. We'll talk about the coverage in a little bit.
I knew you'd like to as well.
But I would reframe the award as your MVP. I know it's very American. You could do Golden Ball or something similar like they do in soccer if you wanted to be un-American, which, fine. Or you could come up with something completely different. I was going
to say the Golden Boot, like we've got up here in the logo, but then that's already a thing in other sports.
Golden Medal.
Well, that's true. Sorry, go on.
That's okay. I'm not here to judge you, Led. What I'm here to do is make up wild ideas that will never see the light of day in this maniacal chamber of concepts we call the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast. In all seriousness, though, I don't want to tinker with the Brownlow Medal format because, by and large, when they've done that, it's been really stupid for starters. Look at when they gave them infinite amount of votes, and every umpire got to vote in the 70s. That was so dumb. They should have done it now with 4. Patrick Cripps with 45 votes would have come about 817th. I actually think somehow in that scenario, Tom Emmett would have beaten Patrick Cripps in terms of vote numbers in season 2024 if all the umpires were voting. Thankfully, we don't live in that society. Thankfully. Yeah. So I would make a best player award separate from the Brownlow Medal. Let the umpires absolutely decide their best and fairest player of the season. Absolutely. Let's not take that away from them. It's cool. It's part of the sports fabric. Well, it's part of the VFL, AFL's fabric. I don't want to rip that away. But It's also worth considering, hey, we're a national competition now as well. Is it time to start thinking about some other ways we can spark our own traditions too? You know, the Coleman Medal's been the Coleman Medal for 60 years. The grand final doesn't move away from the MCG unless there's a complete global pandemic. The Brownlow Medal's been the VFL's best and fairest award for 100 years. The Norm Smith Medal is named after a Victorian coaching and playing legend. Now, yes, obviously you have the right of way if you created the competition yourselves. But is it time, especially when this is a matter of controversy over the award itself, to start divesting from that? Start looking at other ways we can honour the champions of our game, Liam?
Well, I guess this is the what all the other little awards and trinkets are, right? Like the coaches award, the AFLPA award, like all those other ones they're starting to give out can kind of be seen as potentially the more, not meaningful, it's not the right word, but the ones that are more indicative of players.
More credible.
More credible, yeah. I mean, and I know we haven't been, glowing on Bontempelli's year this year, but when you've got him dominating the coaches award, and then, like you said earlier, not even factoring into the Brownlow, it's interesting how there's such a disparity between those two awards. So, yes. I mean, the Brownlow is never going to go away as being the biggest night of the year, the biggest award of the year. It's not going to be changing from that anytime soon. Would bringing in another award like this kind of be a bit of a consolation prize anyway, meaning that, well, good job, you've won the MVP award. Anyway, here's the Brownlow. And that's the one that's got all the history and the tradition and the lineage and what everyone wants to get because it's the Brownlow. It's what it is. So I think they've already kind of done that already, I think, like in terms of getting those extra little awards for the MVPs. I still think...
Yeah, but ultimately the public doesn't care.
True. Yeah, but would they care if it's brought in as a mainstream thing, if the Brownlow still exists? I'd probably say that probably...
I think so.
You reckon so? Like have its own
after we just had two historically impossible seasons that we watched with our eyes not be historically impossible. Very good, sure, elite, absolutely, but historically impossible. I think the public would be open to that. Sure, you'd probably have to introduce it this week, but I do think they'd be open to it. Yeah. And here's another big change I'd make as well. Okay. I'd do the voting live throughout the season. I know almost no one does that in sports, but I'd make the leaderboard from opening round, which is probably going to be in January by 2027, to round 83 on New Year's Eve. Don't know when they're doing finals because they'll just cram them in on 31st. So maybe Christmas.
So what will happen is the finals will happen once the bottom 10 teams start their next season. That's what's going to happen. So so final series goes on, and then what happens is if you make the finals, you've got to catch up those games through the season. So you'll have some games that'll you have like 2 a week maybe. It'll all work out in the wash. Surely.
This is a place of amazing ideas. But in all seriousness, I think if you add that in live and you let people track it and watch it. I mean, the AFL loves their stories and trademark moments and everything. Talk about that. I mean, going into this end of this round, we knew the Brownlow was over by about round 21. Andrew sped up. Everyone got bored. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. 22, though, when it was a very close count that Lachie Neale won, when no one knew going into the final round. Imagine that tension, but in the context of a round of football. We don't keep the league table hidden from people until after the season. That'd be weird. And I feel like people would be able to count and remember how many games they've won.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be something different. And if you want to actually make it important, you got to try things. And you got to be different from what you currently have. Otherwise, people are, it's just the same thing. Like the most valuable players award, the coaches award, etc. No one cares because you haven't given a reason to care. That's more fun. Much like the coaches' votes are as well, done through the season, but promote it. You control the narrative of your sport. Your website is the number one source for content and information and news in the AFL space. The second biggest is your broadcast partner in Fox. You've got all this ability to control the narrative, which you do, by the way. Control it for something like this.
It's a good segue there, Jesse, for the next question, something that you wanted to talk about as well, because you had a lot to say about it on the night as we were texting each other. So your idea comes into play. Throughout the year, we're getting our 3 votes as we go along. We've got a little ladder going. Who's going to be the winner? Who's going to be the winner? Brownlow night comes around. Last Monday before the grand final, Channel 7, they're licking its lips, licking their chops, all the advertising money coming in because they've got a 2-hour broadcast to fill. Now, if you do it your way, what happens on Brownlow night?
Keep it.
Keep it. What are you going to do then? Because you've got all those little recap packages and all the things about round 1, all the vote reading.
Well, we're talking about different medals. So you make it AFL Awards night as opposed to Brownlow night. The Brownlow is the ongoing theme of the evening. Okay. I mean, they're clearly never going to rein this in from a 4-hour hellcast like it was on Monday. That's never going to change. So actually fill the 4 hours with useful stuff instead of utter tripe like I was subjected to on Monday night. That was the single most frustrating evening of television I have ever watched. And it got so bad that I was ready to boo when the Jim Steins Community Award came on because I just wanted them to count.
But you know what, though? With your idea, though, Jesse, they're kind of halfway there because they do that award. They do the goal of the year. They do the market of the year. You can chuck in the rising star of the year. Get that in there as well. MVP.
All-Australian team.
All-Australian team. Get it all in one night. It's a great idea, Jesse. Because you know what? That's what we like. We like the awards side of things. The count itself is kind of redundant and boring, to be honest.
I like the count. It's the filler I can't handle.
Well, the count in itself for 24 rounds, say, for example, okay, let's do it this way. Count through the entire year, right? Brownlow night, you've got all your little awards sprinkled through. Withhold the last 6 rounds. Those last 6 rounds, get the count on for those last 6 rounds, especially if it's a close season. That'd be nice and interesting. Because then it's kind of like the 5-minute countdown we used to get on Channel 10 back in the day. You don't know who's going to win. When's it going to end? You don't know. Get a bit of excitement in there as well. That could work. Because they don't televise, they don't broadcast the Rising Star. They don't broadcast the All-Australian, I don't think. Maybe they do.
Not on free-to-air.
Not on free-to-air. You have to pay for that, do you? Great.
Also, PSA, if you do have a certain streaming subscription and you only want it for the football, guess what? The grand finals are free-to-air. So if you have this certain streaming subscription, I'm not going to say because I don't want to get sued. You can cancel it. You don't have to worry about it again until about February when opening round is probably going to be. So you are so welcome, everyone. We community service on the Centimetre Perfect AFL podcast.
There you go, mate. There you go. I mean, they do show it just about 4 hours later. So, I mean, there's that. But who's watching it 4 hours later? Let's be real.
I'll watch a replay at some point, to be fair.
Oh, that is true. That is true. I like that idea, though, Jesse. I like kind of amalgamating it all into one big old show, all the awards for the year. You can celebrate everybody. You can still celebrate the retirees. We probably don't need Dan Sultan doing a funeral song to do that. That was
that was I gotta say, that missed the mark for me. And yes, it was probably because we were about 2 hours in to the most tedious broadcast of all time. And I'm not saying that Angus Brayshaw delivered a bad speech. Angus Brayshaw delivered a very passionate, articulate, and courageous speech.
He put his heart out there. He did.
But yeah, the whole in memoriam bit at the end felt a little bit tacky. And the whole direction of once these players finish, they have nothing. Well, sure, but is it also up to the individual as well?
Yeah. I think that's just Angus speaking to his own thing. Like, obviously, how he misses the game. He was taken away from it well too soon, though. Like, and that's the big difference.
But again, his whole thing is being framed as people have dropped off the face of the earth. He's been taken from it too soon.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it anymore. Now he needs to do something else. Like, yes, it's sad, but I just the whole tone of it, it didn't click with me. And I'm not trying to, pee on the parade of concussion-related retirement, something that I have advocated around very passionately all season. But I just felt the tone was mismatched with the night. And while, yes, it's important that we recognize this type of stuff, I don't think the overall tone of once players retire, there's nothing for them on this earth quite actually fits reality.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Because there's a lot of footy players that go on to do wonderful things. Some don't. That's just life in general, though. That's how it goes across the board, outside of footy as well. So I get your point. And I think it was nice they gave him the chance and the platform to say his piece. But I tend to agree. Now we have to talk about. Oh, are you done with the broadcast now? Can we move on to other things that we can whinge about the Brownlow for?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Listen here. In the packages and the highlight packages for the games throughout the year, we saw some cracking goals. Jeremy Cameron, Bailey Fritsch, some stunning goals. And not even fluky ones, like some skillful snaps from the pocket, nearly on the 50-meter line from Jezza, a really lovely dribbler from Fritsch, and the 3 they went for the goal of the year. Okay, they were quote unquote nice goals. It was definitely the theme they were going for. Instead of being one of those snaps or one of those dribblers, it was the breakaway from pack, gunning goal. Hayden Ballantyne won one of those a few years ago, I'm pretty sure, with that exact same kind of goal. However, two Nick Dacos ones? 2. The second of which wasn't even that good. The first one was pretty good. He ran around and get handball back, handball received, did a bit of a sidestep goal. Fine. That was nice. Harley Reid's was nice. The second one of Dacos's was egregious at that point. Like, there was some stunning goals this year that were criminally overlooked for an award that doesn't really matter. But it just annoyed me. 2 Dacos. It's almost like they knew he was losing the Brownlow and they thought, oh, how can we give him a consolation prize? And then he still bloody lost it anyway. To Harley Flippin' Reid, who did have a very nice thing to say about a little quip about the newspaper. Because who was the host? I can't remember what's his name. Hamish McLaughlin. I don't know.
Hamish McLaughlin.
What was that right? Oh God, I do know him. Said something about in the papers. He's like, oh, not for the last 24 hours. Very funny. Well done. But I don't know, that pissed me right off.
Being in Melbourne really does bring out the best in Harley, doesn't it? He just seems so much more full of life. Look, in all seriousness, though, you know what? Again, this whole segment has divulged into Liam says something, Jesse agrees but also disagrees because he's stubborn. Yes. I agree that giving 3 of the same goal, the goal of the year nominations, is really stupid, and I thought that was a complete joke.
2 Nick Dacos, 2.
I mean, that's fine. Eddie Betts did that one year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but it's Eddie Betts. His goals were probably good.
Okay, are you gonna let me finish, or are you gonna keep interrupting?
Probably interrupting. Keep going.
I would still give Harley Reid goal of the year because I think you got to consider the wider sphere of what that goal was, and it's pretty hard to ignore how special that goal was. It was a excellent goal. In saying that, I don't really want another midfielder's medal being tossed out next year, so I'm gonna pause my anger on that whole thing until 2025, and we'll see if we do the same thing. If we don't get a bit of a renaissance of snaps and jiggery pokery and hoodwinking in the goal square, then I'm going to be concerned. But I think Harley was a deserving winner of goal of the year. I'm okay with that.
Fair enough. It was a nice goal. It was a very nice goal from the young fella, to be sure. I think it's the 2 Dacos ones that got me. I think it was the 2 Dacos ones. Why did it be 2? Anyway.
Deep breath, Liam. Deep breath. It's okay.
Now we move on to mark of the year. At least we had good marks in there. Some good marks. Bobby Hills was very nice. Jamie Elliott's was very nice, in my opinion. Probably robbed.
Bobby for me. I was pretty.
It was nice, wasn't it? It was nice. Even that little that landing on his feet and just walking off, all cool. Fair enough. And who was the third one? Dersma? No. Zane Dersma was the third one, I think. Good job for being in the top 3. But here's my query on both of those awards, which I thought was quite hilarious. Jesse, what's the prize for goal of the year?
Oh, it's like 10 grand, isn't it?
Yeah, for your local club charity, for your local club where you came up. some rural footy netball club for Harley Reid. Jesse, what's the prize for Mark of the Year?
8 trillion frequent flyer points. You could travel the world, or maybe even go from Perth to Melbourne, Harley, if you so desire.
Oh, Harley
Next
didn't win
time,
it,
take off in the air, Harley, not on the ground. Otherwise, you won't be able to see Yasmin for another week, and that might make you sad next time you go to the herdsman markets. Poor little Harley.
Poor Harley. Poor Harley. I couldn't believe it when they did those awards in Harley. And it's a nice award to give it to charity. And then Mark of the Year is like, here's $25,000 and 2 million velocity points. It's like, I'm sorry. What, for the player? What? How does this work out? How does that make any sense whatsoever?
It'd be great if the CEO of the charity got it. Oh, yeah. Should be right. Off to Vanuatu I go. I mean, Fitzroy could have used that in 96. They could have flown to Nauru to negotiate with their creditors. So, maybe the award was just 28 years too late to save Fitzroy. Another missed opportunity by the AFL.
Well, I'm not too sure if the Brisbane Lions would agree with you there, because they're doing quite nicely for themselves this year. We'll get to that in a second. No, I thought that was very funny. Like, first of all, like getting fired up about the mark of the goal of the year, did that, and then hearing the differences between those two prizes, I was like, well, what does the Brownlow Medal? Does the Brownlow winner get anything, or just the little tiny Charlie?
He gets the little tiny Charlie.
Little tiny Charlie,
and he gets his face on the front cover of the Footy Record Season Guide for the next year.
Yeah, so very well done.
I've got. You can't see it; it's behind the chair, but there's a copy of my 2024 one as a bit of a backdrop with Lockie Neal on it. So
yeah.
I might make a custom cover for next year.
And
put Caleb Serrone on it. The Brownlow Medalist of my heart.
And congratulations, Cripper. You also get yourself on the thumbnail for this episode of the Centimetre Perfect podcast on YouTube.
Last thing I want to say before we move on from the Brownlow. It's the one thing. And it's a brag.
Okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
There have been 25 Brownlow Medal counts in the 21st century. I can't be bothered to work out exactly how many winners, so shut up. But in those 25 counts, 5 Brownlow Medals have gone to a player from the Instrumental Football Club. Woden, Black, Cousins, Cripps. Find me a better state league club at producing elite level talent.
Well, I can't, because you know that I'm not well versed on waffle, probably not as well as I should be. Congratulations to Peel Thunder, but no, Jesse, it's a good point though. It's a good point. Any young bloods coming through the instrumental ranks this year?
None that'll smack into the draft, the upper echelons of the draft at least.
Wait a second. Are we allowed to still call them the Sharks, or do we have to change that?
We'll call them the Sharks on this podcast. I think that'll be okay.
I think so too. I'm intrigued to hear about that. If that saga is ongoing, because I'm pretty sure you mentioned it on this podcast before. You may have even just told me, but it's a very, very funny.
I just told you. I did not. You just told me. This podcast.
Okay, we'll move on then. We'll move on to 2 preliminary final games that took place last weekend, leading into the grand final that is happening this weekend. Jesse, we'll start with the first one on Friday night. Sydney 14-11-95, defeating Port Adelaide 8-11-59. Well,
boring game of football alert in a prelim final. What a waste of everyone's time.
Look, this is why we wanted Hawthorn to get it through. Now, not to say that Hawthorn would have done any better, but I reckon it would have been more fun. But how's that? Sydney haven't beaten Port for years, including a 112 point thrashing not a month ago. And they came out, their slow starts, they didn't stutter, they came out, they took the lead early on, which is something they haven't done for a while. Their accuracy was great going into the half, 9 goals, 1. Then they came out after the half and piled 4 goals, 6. Accuracy went away, but Port only kicked 2 goals, 3. This game was never in doubt. Never in doubt from the get-go, it felt like. You want to say anything about it?
I do. It creates an interesting dynamic for the grand final, because Sydney have really gotten over the heebie-jeebies that they had in the back half of season 2024. Mm-hmm. That was one of their most complete performances in my eyes across the season, and yet it was far from their most dominant. It was dominant in terms of the fact they were never going to lose the game, but it's a 6-goal win, so it's nothing to write home about. But it was never in doubt, and it was quite frankly a boring game of football, because Port never looked likely, and when you have the team that never looks likely and they have to play 120 minutes of football, that can get pretty dull after about 20 of those. Sydney, deserving, no issues there. Port, I think we need to run the diagnostics on the Port Adelaide Football Club because something's not quite right here.
Oh, okay.
They can't, and they just don't have everything they need. Yet on paper, they do. Yet the decreases in production from a number of players in this final series is alarming. Butters gets a pass because he's been playing hurt. Happy to give him a pass. But realistically, of their stars, I think you could only look at Horne-Francis and say Horne-Francis had a good final series on balance.
Yeah.
Beyond that, Aaliyah struggled, I think, this final series. Rosé had a final series that did not cover himself in glory. Even guys like Willem Drew, meh, he was fine. Willie Riolo had a very good semi-final, but outside of that was null and void for the most part. Georgiades struggled. Marshall struggled. Dixon was anonymous to the point now he's retired. This team absolutely could win a premiership if the premiership was played in August. And that's not meant to be like a mean comment. It's just time and time again we're in this position where they can't get over this finals hump.
Well, it was an interesting final series for Port because they got smashed. Then they put in a good effort against Hawthorn, and then, in all intents and purposes, kind of got smashed again. Like if it wasn't for Sydney kind of turning off the heat a little bit in the last quarter to preserve, it could have been much nastier as well. But they got absolutely pumped, absolutely railed. Good game, poor game again. So yeah, it's an interesting when you look at the Swans, you look at Brisbane, who have had very good final series. It does make you wonder where the mindset is at for that. And I do wonder how much, looking back in hindsight, if old Hinkley maybe shouldn't have jumped the gun on giving old Ginny the what for, because
I was furiously refreshing his Instagram. I'm not afraid. I was waiting for the response.
Oh, Ginny's?
Yeah.
What came? Did anything come?
No.
He was probably told to probably just leave it alone, to be honest with you. Probably told to leave it alone, but Port tried to take
he had a big night on Monday to prepare for at the Brownlow. Did Ginny? Him getting the 3 votes against Collingwood was chef's kiss. That's the type of stuff that we need more of in the AFL, and his reaction to. Anyway, wildly off topic.
No, but I think we'll get a lot of that though coming forward. I think this is going to be a bit of a new breed of footy coming through. The braggadocious young fella, and mixed in with like the professional young fellas like Matty Rowell. Like a nice little amalgam, nice middle amalgam. I'm looking
good. We have too many people going to these games to not have wind-up merchants. You get these 6'2" lumps in League One who just wind up the home crowd, of which there's about 8,000 people, of which 100 are stewards, and it's a great watch. I'm one of the most easily wound up people at the football you'll ever meet. So,
it's true.
Ginny winding up the Optus crowd is going to get me off my trolley. So more of it, please. More of it. Wind me up. Do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good for the sport. If you give people reasons to tune into anything, and I talk about this obviously in a racing context all the time, but if you give people a reason to tune into things, people will do it. If you just give them a generic, blasé, nothing product that you just simply have an entitlement to be there because, this event is on, then you're not going to get people to care. Whereas if you give people reasons to care and subplots to care, lo and behold, people care. Let's go back to Sydney, though. Not the city. Not a big fan of the city. Would rather not go back there.
I love Sydney.
In the context of the team, I know you do. You seem like a very Sydney person. I'm actually surprised you even live in Perth, to be honest.
I like Perth too. Perth is lovely.
You don't strike me as a Perthite.
No, I'm a bit of a gypsy. I like to walk around. I like to move around quite a bit. Go see other places. Live in other places. It's just part of my nature.
Thanks for sharing. Tasmania's got a new team. Go and support them. Sydney, strong performance. I think that's what they needed going into a grand final because actually, you know what? I'm gonna quantify that a little bit.
Okay.
Was such an easy game a good thing when they've barely played in the last 6 weeks?
I wouldn't go as far as saying it was easy. Comfortable.
Comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable. Yes. I think Sydney are going to be able to turn it on next week because I don't think the Lions are going to be resting on any laurels given how their season has gone. And we'll touch on that in a sec. But I think they're going to have to turn it on next week because they're going to have to. We'll put it this way: Port tried to tag Heaney, and then Goulden and Warner just stood up and just took it over anyway. You can do that to any one of those three, and the other two are just going to take over, right? So tag it probably isn't going to work for Sydney. You've got too many options there to tag them all. You can't do it. Although a triple tag, Jesse, could it be it? Doesn't matter. No, probably not. But
the best defensive midfield of all time.
just literally just arm in arm the entire way around the oval. Be great. But that's the thing that stood out to me on this in this particular Sydney performance was that there was nothing stopping them. Port couldn't stop them, and I don't think Brisbane are going to take that same tactic. And in games where there hasn't really been any tags and they've all got to focus on being the midfielders together, the games have kind of maybe not been as cohesive. So it'll be interesting to see. How it plays out for sure.
I agree. Brisbane are a more well-organised side, but they don't have to deploy that tagging role. They've got ball winners of their own right in that midfield. Neil, Dunkley, Ashcroft. That's the battle we want. And that's where that game will be won or lost. Shall we talk about the good preliminary final? Because this one was an absolute belter.
It was, and I wasn't able to watch this live because I was down south for a long weekend. I got to catch up with it very late once I got internet back. And all I got when I turned my phone on was about 50 messages from you, 50 messages from my friend who's a Brisbane supporter over in Queensland, just going bananas. And I was like, shush, everybody, I haven't watched it yet. Geelong 12-13-85, defeating Brisbane 14-11. No, defeated by Brisbane 14-11-95. Well, Jesse, the carpenter that you paid earlier in the season to come board up Brisbane's house is laughing his ass off right now because you paid.
Yeah, I hope he's not building my joint because he's done a pretty shit job.
He got paid for nothing. Wow.
No, look, you know what? I'm gonna stand by until I can stand by it no more.
Sure.
To be fair, at that point in time, would you have said they were going to make the grand final?
No, not
and
at
be
all.
a very even chance of winning that game.
Not at all. No.
So yeah, at the time, their premiership window looked shot.
Mm-hmm. What's happened?
They've turned it around because they've got an excellent coach. They have an A+ coach in their organisation in terms of people management. Fagan may not be the best tactically, but he gets the best out of this Brisbane side. And that's why they're here where they're now. That's why you've got, for all the talk about Hockball and the fun that Hawthorn are, I get the sense Brisbane are a really fun side to play for us. We look at guys like Joe Danaher, always smiling. Charlie's usually smiling as well. Harris Andrews generally has a smile on his face unless he's somehow trying to bump Rankin, who ducks under him, then he falls over and looks really stupid. That was this year, and he's going to be in a grand final. So they look like a fun side to play for, or play with. And I got the sense on Saturday they had nothing to lose. Geelong, to a similar, they had probably slightly more to lose, but they still played fearlessly, I felt. And we just got this game where both sides traded punches. It was in dispute from siren to siren for the most part until Reece Stanley committed one of the worst acts on a football field I've ever seen.
Well,
hobbling back to take your kick, so wasting time, and then spraying your kick to almost certainly seal defeat for your team. That was incredible.
Well, when he got that when he got that front on free kick and he got up from that, he looked disheveled. He looked a mess. He looked in pain. And I think that was and I'm not surprised he missed it because it looked like he couldn't feel his legs. Like it was a battle of attrition this game. But
why did no Geelong player sprint up to him and take the kick off him?
Can you do that?
If a player is not physically fit to take it, I would just shove Stanley over and make him roll around the floor. The umpire's not going to make him take his kick. Duty of care.
It's very.
You've got to be smarter than that. And in these close game situations where every decision matters,
well,
you've got to be switched on to these things.
To be fair, though, they probably thought that even if he was completely cooked, he wasn't going to miss from where he kicked it from. That was because I was expecting.
But if the ball changes hands, the time goes off.
What do you mean?
If a player can't take a kick, umpire has to blow time off to hand the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
So that baffled me watching that live that no one thought, especially for a side like Geelong, who are usually so cluey at those type of things. To me, they're your things. And that's probably speaking as someone who spent a lot of time in the forward pocket as a junior footy player. you've got to be aware of what the game situation is up forward. You've got to be aware of these things. And I just think that was a missed opportunity for Geelong.
There's a kick to be taken after the siren. Jesse runs up to his own teammate, just punches him in the head and goes, "Can't take that kick. I'll take it. Don't you worry, guys."
No, I'd be the one that gets someone to punch me in the head for it. I'm not doing that. Are you joking?
It's too much pressure, man. Risk versus reward.
I've got opposition fans to go wind up. Someone else can do it.
You just walk over the fence. The kick's there to be taken. You just walk over the fence and start jaw jacking with the crowd. Yeah. Oh, dear me. No,
So
but
my predicted Premier Geelong, they fell short at the preliminary final hurdle. I still think a fantastic season for them. We'll talk about their ratings probably next week, I would say.
I'd say so. We'll do the rest next week.
They had a fantastic season. Brisbane, the game was there to be won, and credit to them, they pushed themselves over the line. They have a chance. They have very much have a chance on Saturday.
Well, a couple of players who we've been kind of, critical of. Well, maybe not. One of them, Rayner, we've been pretty critical of. Archie,
he was a bit 50-50 though. I know he got the winning goal.
Well, that's all.
But he had opportunities to influence that game a lot earlier than he did.
Correct, but him and Archie were pretty clutch. Archie especially had a really good final series. I think really good final series.
I agree.
They were both pretty clutch. Kai Lohman, he was good too. Took a couple of speckies, which was fun to see. I'm not too sure what that celebration he did was. It was like the butler, like hands behind the back, putting his hand out like this.
A bit odd.
It suits the haircut.
He seems like a bit of an odd character, but in a good way.
He's got a haircut straight from like a 90s karate movie. Do you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But look, I think the Cats, if they had made it past this game, probably would have been without a few pretty big key names, because Holmes was cooked as well. Stanley was cooked. A lot of them look pretty done for the season, to be honest with you. A lot of them look very ready to not be playing anymore. Also big Oscar McInerney. He put his shoulder out twice in the same game. I saw a nice little video clip from America of a guy going how Australians are built different, showing the clip of his shoulder halfway down his sternum, and then going, this guy came back and kept playing. He just went and popped it back in. Yeah, a bit of tape. She'll be right. Get back out there. And then the fact that you can actually see the dislocation again through the tape goes to show he ain't playing next week, which is a bit of a bummer for him, I'm sure. But hey, them's the breaks when it comes to footy. But that sets up, Jesse, a massive final between Sydney and Brisbane. We'll be watching it live at Pub TBD somewhere along the way. And you can catch our final season finale of Just the Tips on YouTube as well, where Jesse and I will put our final tip in for the season to round
in our bonus non-binding final segment of the series. How fun for all.
It'll be good. It'll be a good one, I'm sure. But as for today's podcast, Jesse, like you said, it's short for us, 50 minutes. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
We've done the anti-Brownlow in this one. Actually, so if everyone is happy, I'm happy to now spend 40 minutes doing ad reads, and then we'll come back and do 5 minutes worth of stuff at the end.
You do 40 minutes of ad reads, come back, I'll sing a Dan Sultan song, and then we'll send it out to the end.
Can we play Lanterns by Birds of Tokyo as well to include the West Coast fans?
I would rather, I was going to say something probably I shouldn't say on YouTube, but I would rather go and jump off my balcony. Let's put it that way. I'd rather do a Macho Man elbow drop from my balcony onto my car below the balcony than listen to Birds of Tokyo. Ever. Oh, we must. Sorry.
Okay, that's enough of that. Thank you for listening to the Sentiment Perfect AFL podcast. Make sure you tune into our Just a Tip special. Like, share, subscribe, tell family, tell friends. Go to the grand final parade and tell the players. Harass the players hours before the biggest day of their career to listen to the Sentiment Perfect AFL podcast. I dare you. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.